What is going on, guys? This is Blink here, back with another guide. Now, in this guide, I'll be showing you guys how to peek throughout the game with proper crosshair placement and movement as you move around the map. Now, before we do get started, let me know if you prefer the Vandal or the Phantom more in the comments below. This question's pretty popular, so I'm curious to know what most of you guys prefer. Lastly, I do stream on Twitch almost every day, so if you guys have the time, come stop by and say hi, as I'd really appreciate it. Alright guys, let's get it started. Now, you've got your mouse in hand and you're running around, so where exactly do you place your crosshair? Well, depending on the situation, there are a few key steps you must take. One thing I must note, and I see this a lot, players having their crosshair at ground level or turning their crosshair like a car steering wheel around corners. Doing these things will make the game unnecessarily harder, as you now gotta take the time to make bigger crosshair adjustments before you can finally start taking shots towards your opponents. So what you want to learn to do is learn to pre-aim around corners, and what this means is to place your crosshair in a position to where your opponents will most commonly play. The way you know where a player will mostly play is simply playing that exact map over and over and over. With time, guys, you'll be able to rip around the map, pre-aiming every angle opponents play. Yeah, probably a few games of playing, you'll be able to pre-aim every angle with ease, but it'll take a good few weeks of playing the same map to really know which areas of the map players are usually settled in and will most commonly play 90% of the time. For example, say you're executing B-site on Ascend, and you know throughout the weeks of playing, there's always a player up in Market. You'll clear all the common angles first, and as you're moving on to site, you'll just want to once in a while have your vision focused around that market area until you can no longer see it. So you just want to make a virtual heat map in your head, and red being the most common played areas. You want to focus your crosshair around those red areas until you can no longer see them. Now, movement is the second big step you want to combine with good crosshair placement, because without good movement, your crosshair placement's going to be wacky. If you come from a game like CSGO, you'll notice pistol rounds are a little different. In CSGO, you can usually run around and take shots with your pistol and even SMGs. While in Valorant, you'll still need to be standing still most of the time, and this goes with most weapons. Now, if you're quite literally in a player's face, then having a little bit of left-right movement is fine, but 99% of the time, you want to learn to stop moving before you take a shot. I do also like to add a crouch in before I start shooting, as I notice it doesn't affect my aim, and it's something I've done in CSGO for a while. It's great to throw off your opponents aiming at proper head level, because now they have to readjust their crosshair lower. Now, to get better at shooting while not moving is simply go into the practice range, and after every few shots, you want to move in the opposite direction and learn to stop before taking shots again. Even coming from CSGO, I had to do this myself, because I had to learn to completely stop moving in order to take a shot, since counter strafing is very minimal or non-existent in Valorant. So if you've got all this down, then the last thing I want to talk about is adding in little jitters when pre-aiming. And the reason you want to add in these jitters is that it'll allow you to pre-aim angles much more safely by baiting shots from opponents, and it'll keep you moving at all times to avoid stopping at unnecessary times, making you an easy target to hit when you're stationary. The times you want to mostly add this in is if you're in positions where opponents will already be pre-peeking you, because they expect you to appear sooner or later. But if you're in an early flank and your opponents probably won't be looking behind them, then shift walking the whole way without adding jitters will save you time on the flanks. These are just little things you guys have to think about that add up to help you become the best peeker possible. Alright, so let me quickly go over an example that basically shows everything we've talked about. In this example, I push up with Reyna's Leer ability. Now, since the opponents can hear me use the Leer, I add in the little jitter peeks because I want to bait out any shots on common angles opponents play. So when I turn the corner, I don't jiggle peek because I've used my Leer ability, which will blind opponents. So my goal is to get around the corner quickly. I spot no one, so I start jiggling around the close corner because once again, my opponents heard the Leer. Now I do spot no one and I turn the corner again, and you can see I'm just tapping my D key, pre-aiming every common angle players can be playing around mid. The point of me tapping the D key is instead of just shift walking around and pre-aiming, I tap it to firstly be able to shoot right away, and secondly, it allows me to expose myself to one player only. Had I wide peeked, I would have been exposed to potentially more than one player, so you want to try to minimize the amount you move after every peek. It gives you a better chance of fighting 1v1 duels. Now, there are times when you should wide peek and when you shouldn't. and I'll be going over wide peeking in an additional video I'll be making about peeking in the near future, so be ready for that. So continuing on, I've spotted no players. I can now kind of play a little bit more freely to allow myself to wrap around a little quicker without jittering everything, as it'll save me time. Once I get around a bomb site, I hear an opponent running towards me. So what I do is I hold an off angle, which is another in-depth topic I want to get into, as there's a lot to talk about. But to summarize it, it's basically angles opponents don't expect you to beat and don't pre-aim it as a result. Now, I'm just checking sight as I've already lost this round, just trying to get some exits. Running back to the opponent's spawn, I know they can be middle hunting me, so I hold another off angle to get the elimination. Sorry for the jump, guys, you don't want to do that. I sometimes accidentally hit my scroll wheel key, which is the jump key, as it's right beside my fire key. Lastly, I push towards middle jiggling, because remember guys, if your opponent expects you or knows you're there, add in that jiggle to make them pre-fire you and to throw their aim off. Let me show you one more quick example. So we go for a B rush and one opponent starts pre-firing the corner. I add in that little jiggle to throw his aim off again and get the elimination. I then push up to sight and you can see I peek back at market multiple times, because remember, that's a very common angle to play. Once it's not in my view, I go and clear sight. I then go towards my opponent's spawn, and once again, I'm pre-aiming the market because it's a common angle opponents come from. Once I turn the corner, I hold my opponent's spawn and get 2 eliminations. I then use Reyna's dismiss ability to check deeper into spawn before going back into cover. So I was able to utilize this character's abilities to get more information on any players while not having to take damage. I do spot a player out, and unfortunately I don't notice that I need to reload and don't get the elimination because of it. So one thing I should have paid attention to was my ammo, although overall a very clean execute. Well guys, that's it for this guide. I do plan on doing a few different peeking videos to really help you guys master everything you need to know. I got way more guides coming in the next couple of days, and I'm stoked to release them and help you guys out even more. Now, if this guide did help out, then a like and a sub will be greatly appreciated, as it does help me out a lot. I appreciate everybody that likes and subs, so thanks for that. Anyways guys, hope you have a great rest of your day and night, and I'll see you on the next one.